Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another podcast vlog here with myself, Chris Hattingh, project manager here at the Free Market Foundation. I hope you've all missed me a lot. I apologize that I haven't posted an episode in a few weeks. I was traveling in the US. I was there doing some training with the Atlas Network. I was in Philadelphia and New York. I had a really good time. Learned quite a lot from people all around the world working in the liberty movement at different organizations. So overall, very fruitful and worthwhile experience. But now back in South Africa, this very interesting country of ours, with all its whole host of problems. I mean, every country has issues, but South Africa, I think, is quite unique. I think those of you watching and listening who are South Africans will agree with me that our country stands quite apart from others around the world in the unique host of challenges and issues that face us. The Springboks won the Rugby World Cup a few weeks ago, and almost the next day people were arguing again about insignificant things like the color of people's skin and that sort of thing, where they should have really focused on a great achievement of merit and skill. But we tend to do that, I think, in South Africa. We perhaps focus too much on the negative. That being said, maybe that's part of my job here, and our job at the Free Market Foundation, highlighting the real policy issues that face South Africans, the effect that these policies have on ordinary South Africans' lives, on their pockets, on their ability to live. Just today, we hosted an event about the national health insurance, about its potential effects on you, the South African taxpayer, and your own healthcare, whether you go to public facilities or you have a private medical scheme. The NHI is going to be disastrous for everyone's healthcare. If you're interested in that, and I would encourage you to please go and watch the recording. It is on our Facebook page, and we'll be uploading the recording to our YouTube channel here probably tomorrow, on Friday, the 22nd of November, if you're interested in watching that, and I would encourage you to do so. So on the topic of the NHI and other bad policies and immoral ideas such as expropriation without compensation, regulations like the national minimum wage, prescribed assets, all of these things are in the news now. On that whole thing, I would like to talk about World Philosophy Day. Today, the 21st of November, is World Philosophy Day. Myself being I'm not a trained philosopher as such, but I studied philosophy at university. So that's my sort of academic background. And I, of course, have a great passion for philosophy and ideas and the effect that philosophy has on people's lives. And I do think it has a very deep effect on people's lives. Just to take a concrete example, the computer on which you're watching this or the phone on which you're listening to this, these products were produced by people's minds, by their effort. They had a concept, they had an idea of something they wanted to make and to build, and then they had to look around them in the world and figure out how to do so. Whether it was a worker in one of the factories that produced the computer, maybe their idea was that they wanted to make a living for themselves, so they had to participate in the process of building this laptop on which you're watching, or this computer. Everyone has these sorts of goals in mind that they want to try and attain. And then going back to the concept of the computer itself, well, someone had to come up with that, had to try and figure out what resources were needed, and how to bring people together, or maybe do it themselves. So just look around you at the things on your table, maybe in your kitchen. These things were all produced by people's minds. We didn't just find them out in nature. We didn't force them into existence. We had to think about them. And then we had to decide how best to bring them about. I'm sure there were many failed experiments, many failed products. We know of many products which go and companies which go under because they simply don't satisfy consumer demand as well as other products. Apple, for example, Apple products are very expensive, but they've sort of tapped into what is very important to many people. Maybe it's the aesthetics of an Apple product that people place a lot of value on. That's been identified, and Apple keeps on producing every year. That's evident in their bottom line. Same with Amazon, Microsoft, but also just more. You can look at more, I guess, low tech, if you want to call them products, cars, that sort of thing. Everything in our very industrialized and modern world, which I think a lot of us take for granted, has been produced by men's minds. It hasn't been produced by force. It has been produced by people thinking, coming up with ideas, interacting with each other, trading, and trying to convince others to invest in their product. Of course, it's great having an idea, but you have to convince investors and those people with capital to invest in your ideas. Otherwise, they're simply going to remain that ideas. So on this thing of World Philosophy Day, I would just like to reinforce the importance of philosophy, the importance of holding the right moral ideas and ideals and concepts as opposed to the wrong ones. If you, for example, hold the idea of philosophy, apologies, the idea of socialism or communism in your mind, you're accepting a premise of force, that people should be forced to live in a certain way, that the state should have that ability to force people to perhaps give up a certain amount of their income to live in certain areas. That's what happened under apartheid. To interact with people or not interact with people in a certain way, who they can marry, who they can't marry, what they may read, what they may not read, what they may watch or not watch, what music they may listen to or not listen to. This is all the result of holding the idea of socialism, of state force as the primary in your mind, whereas under capitalism the idea is freedom, expression, voluntary interaction between people, free trade, free thought, and the ability to, I guess, experiment with your own abilities, your ideas, to test yourself and compete with other people, and to hold sort of your own happiness very, very much in the focus of your mind. This was especially the focus, of course, of Ayn Rand and her philosophy of objectivism, holding your life, your standard of life, as your standard of value, and trying to live that out in the best way possible, identifying your own skills and talents and abilities and sort of amplifying them as best as you can, if that was your sort of way of pursuing what makes you happy in life, whether you want to become a businessman, a sportsman, an artist, perhaps an air hostess, any of the above. If you're a janitor, becoming the best janitor in the world. The point is holding your own life and mind and abilities as an absolute and trying to improve on them as best as you can. So touching on Rand, I just thought I'd give you guys a few quotes, maybe just one. I want to keep this little podcast as short as I can. But Rand, she wrote in the book Philosophy, Who Needs It? And I'm going to quote for you here. As a human being, you have no choice about the fact that you need a philosophy. Your only choice is whether you define your philosophy by a conscious, rational, disciplined process of thought and scrupulously logical deliberation, or let your subconscious accumulate a junk heap of unwarranted conclusions, false generalizations, undefined contradictions, undigested slogans, unidentified wishes, doubts, and fears, thrown together by chance, but integrated by your subconscious into a kind of mongrel philosophy and fused into a single solid weight, self-doubt, like a ball and chain in the place where your mind's wings should have grown, end quote. I think that's quite powerful, and it reinforces sort of what I'm saying here about the importance of holding the right ideas, the right moral ideas. For example, if you think man's mind is impotent, that we can't use our rational faculty, you're probably, you might be successful in some aspects of your life, but you have to think at some point. We are rational beings, as Rand makes clear. If you sort of go against this idea of having a philosophy or a set of ideas, you can stumble along and you can probably do some things in your life, but at some point it's going to catch up with you. It's up to you to use this tool of rationality that you have to figure out what is in the world around you, what is the best way to interact with people or not, and then to go about that. It's always up to your individual choice. No one can do your thinking for you. I think that's important to keep in mind. And that's another thing that totalitarian regimes try to replace. They try to do people's thinking for them. It's almost a way of infantilizing people, that the state presumes it can make these decisions for them, the state or certain politicians and bureaucrats. They think they can think for people. So I guess just in summary, I wanted to talk about the importance of philosophy and ideas, and holding the right ideas. Don't underestimate the power of philosophy. We shouldn't think it's just something abstract that people in ivory towers and universities talk about. We all have a philosophy, whether it's more religious, more secular, whether it's communism, capitalism, socialism, whether it's something completely different that I might not have mentioned here, transhumanism, take as an example. It's all ideals and concepts that we hold about the world and that our actions flow from. So they'll often dictate how we sort of interact with people and how we live, what things we value and treat as important. And I think it's important to think about your own personal philosophy and what that says about you as a person, what's important to you and how you view others. It's important to interrogate these things. So don't underestimate the power of philosophy and ideas. Our actions very much flow from philosophy. So it is to your own benefit, and I think your own credit, if you're willing to sort of interrogate your own ideas, your philosophy, your worldview, and figure out what is important to you and what might not be, and where your assumptions and preconceived notions come from. Maybe they're correct, maybe they're morally correct, but you have to integrate them into a whole system. You shouldn't take different parts from different systems. Otherwise, you're probably going to struggle to act consistently and live consistently. You might find yourself contradicting yourself quite often if you don't have one sort of set philosophy as such. That doesn't mean that you wouldn't be open to new ideas, kind of thing. I guess, again, then it depends on your philosophy. Maybe you're more conservative and you wouldn't favor new ideas. If you're more progressive and I guess modern, if you want to put it that way, you're more open to interrogating certain things, and you favor new ideas and questioning certain things, and sort of trying to progress in that way. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to interrogate your philosophical system as such. And I always try and work in some Ayn Rand in these podcasts if I can. So I hope you find value in what she wrote. I would encourage you to go and read Philosophy, Who Needs It? It's always a good read for me, going back to some of the things Ayn Rand has written. Not some of the things, all of the things. There's always something new that I find. So I would encourage you to go and read that. Maybe if you don't want to start with Atlas Shrugged, I know that's quite intimidating for people, but maybe start with one of the smaller non-fiction books. I hope you found some value in this. Again, that's an example of philosophy. You coming back to these podcasts, subscribing, liking, sharing, shows that you find value in at least some of the things that we talk about and say. And we really appreciate that. But again, that's an indication of philosophy, of some of the things that you value. You preference giving 11 minutes of your time to this over something else. And that's an indication of a hierarchy of values. So again, don't underestimate philosophy. It's all around us. It's within us. And it's important to realize that, I think. So on that note, thank you very much for watching today or listening. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast and this channel. We really appreciate your support. Please do consider supporting the FMF financially if you're able to do so. If you value the work that we do, you can find all of our articles, submissions, everything like that on our website. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter, and of course, please explore the rest of our YouTube channel. Watch our other presentations, especially today's NHI one, if you're interested in learning more about the National Health Insurance. All right, I'm sure we'll be back tomorrow on Friday with a Free Marketeers podcast. And until then, I hope you all have a good Thursday further, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.